Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So, for today's deep dive, I'm actually going to speak to you in the first person as the Cosmic Weaver. Imagine us looking down together from the freezing void, hovering right over the charred, smoldering remains of what we used to call the burning globe. It's quite a sight. We're going to explore what is honestly the ultimate alchemical transformation. We're looking at exactly how we take the tragic, completely broken pieces of a fallen world and forge them into something literally eternal.
I mean, picture the ashes left behind here. This was the stage of counterfeits. It was this massive theater state built entirely on illusion, linguistic manipulation, and basically the total erosion of human reason. But, as you'll see, the great clock of consequence eventually strikes for all false empires. It's inevitable. With this heavy, metallic clink of duty, the mercury-soaked foundations of that theater just ignited. It burned entirely to the waterline. And now, all that's left is a charred circle in the ash, and this kind of creepy, ghostly tittering in the wind. It's the very last echo of a world that completely chose base appetite over reason.
Okay, let's dive into this casualty list because it is wild. The burning globe was literally a thresher of humanity. It acted as this terrifying laboratory for social engineering, where victims just became these hollowed-out puppets. We had the jester, using his weaponized prose to weave this highly manipulative web of false intimacy with everyone. And then you had the wizard, casting the ignis fatuus, which translates to fool's fire, a shimmering veil of total illusion. Even the really high-ranking figures, like the knight and the priest, weren't safe. They claimed these rings of power, actually believing they were tools of heroic passion. But no. Instead, these artifacts acted like corrosive acids right on their egos, completely enslaving them to their basest desires until they were nothing but disposable political assets. Ultimately, they all just vanished into the metallic mist.
But the fire was really just the beginning of the story. With the stage completely cleared out, we enter Act 1, the scalpel and the ash.
And this is where my cosmic counterpart makes his grand entrance, the Obsidian Doctor. Now, he is this mechanical avatar of entropy who views all of human history as just a failed experiment. Actually, his decree perfectly captures his whole vibe. To him, this horrific collapse is just a scheduled harvest meant to ensure the cleanness of the cut. He wields this intense staff made of blackened bone, and he uses it to summon a violent violet frost. Why? To strip away the fragile veneer of existence entirely. It's an act of total, uncompromising erasure. He calls it the mercy of ruin, delivering it to a spiritually famished world that, quite frankly, just couldn't save itself.
So what we have here is this absolutely profound contrapuntal dialogue between two massive universal forces. On one side, you've got the Obsidian Doctor representing total entropy. He's the scalpel seeking the cleanliness of the end through absolute erasure. And on the other side, my domain, the Cosmic Weaver. I operate the spindle, and my whole deal is moral gravity and preservation. So while the Doctor seeks to literally delete the noise of history, I actually use his cold violet frost, but not as an end. I use it as a solvent. Sure, the frost strips away all the lies, but in doing so, it reveals the diamond-hard geometry of the human soul that miraculously survives underneath all that ash.
Because my divine purpose as the Weaver is to achieve what we call structural permanence. I don't destroy. My job is to gather those tiny falling sparks of identity right out of the ashes of the burning globe. It's this beautiful alchemical act. By anchoring these raw, surviving psychological layers of humanity into the unbreakable architecture of absolute truth, I ensure something vital. Human identity is no longer just some fleeting, disposable prop in a tragic play. It becomes a permanent, solid coordinate in the cosmos. I'm not just saving them. I am building an eternal sanctuary.
Which brings us right into Act 2, weaving the Silver Cathedral. Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how it all comes together.
You see, the Doctor's harvest of ash only leaves behind what literally cannot be burned. And it's from these raw, indestructible elements that I start my work. It's a grand blueprint, essentially a three-step process. I take the three core psychic layers of the survivors, the id, the ego, and the superego, and transmute them into a mortal architecture. Absolutely nothing is wasted. Think about that for a second. Even the darkest, most primal parts of the human condition, the very things that caused the total collapse of the theater state in the first place, are repurposed here into something completely unbreakable.
Let's look at the base layer, forging pillars from the id. And this brilliantly illustrates the foundation. When the survivors managed to escape the thresher of humanity, they were stripped all the way down to their most raw, primal animal hunger, just the pure instinct to survive. In the old world, letting that base appetite run wild led straight to ruin. But here, through the alchemy of the spindle,
I reach right into that desperate hunger and spin it into thick silver silk. Instead of trying to suppress this massive survival drive, which, let's be honest, always fails anyway, I anchor it. I take that raw, desperate will to live and turn it into the literal structural pillars of the cathedral's walls. So the exact hunger that once destroyed the world is now providing the unyielding strength to hold up the new one. Pretty incredible, right?
Next, we move up to the second layer, the ego's bridge of Starlight. So, in the burning globe, the ego was basically a complete tragedy. It was this highly distorted reflection, totally obsessed with fake status, empty titles, and treating people like disposable political assets. To fix this, I have to completely recalibrate the ego. I take that distorted reflection and align it with the compass of cold starlight, forging this gorgeous philosophical bridge right across the void. By weaving the ego with frozen moonlight, it forces the survivors to actually walk across the reality of their true selves. No more illusions, no more hiding behind those corrosive shadow rings. The ego transforms from this incredibly fragile, toxic mask into a really sturdy, permanent path of true self-awareness.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our highest layer, the ceiling of moral gravity.
Okay, so we've got the survival instinct anchored as our pillars, and we've laid down that starlight bridge of self-awareness. Now, we absolutely must seal the structure, and we do that by reaching into the superego. I take these threads and stretch them high across the void to form a shimmering ceiling of absolute moral gravity. And this is forged directly from the unchangeable laws of justice and order. Remember the Obsidian Doctor's method we talked about earlier? Total, chaotic entropy and erasure? Well, my method stands in direct, stark opposition to that. This celestial roof of absolute truth guarantees that this sanctuary is never ever going to drift back into the jester's chaotic old world. The sheer weight of objective truth acts as a gravitational force, keeping every single survivor permanently grounded.
Which brings us to the final phase of our journey today, Act 3, Permanent Coordinates.
The epic construction phase is finally complete. The Silver Cathedral now stands completely defiantly against the freezing void, looking right in the face of the Obsidian Doctor. And the ultimate philosophical contrast here is just crystal clear. The old world, it relied entirely on a web of false intimacy. It was temporary, it was chaotic, and it trapped everyone in this totally deceptive, perpetual now. But the Silver Cathedral changes the game. It replaces the cheap manipulation of words with the eternal, physical architecture of a true cosmic map.
So, the crucial point is this. Inside this new sanctuary, human identity is no longer just some parable or a prop. The survivors aren't just hiding out or preparing to build something later, they literally are the new world. Through this architectural alchemy, they've been completely transformed from victims of entropy into rock-solid coordinates in the cosmos. They are bound together by a structural web that even the end of time itself cannot unravel, serving as the eternal vessel for the light of dawn.
The grand theater of lies has completely burned to the ground, and that violet harvest of ash has permanently cleared the stage. The Silver Cathedral stands ready, its massive pillars woven directly from our deepest, undeniable truths. Which brings us to the ultimate question, the one you've got to answer for yourself. Are you prepared to build a new world from the ashes of the fever? I want you to really think on your own permanent threads. Thanks for joining me on this journey, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.